Some of the most beautiful ships in Star Wars are the ones from the planet Naboo. These handcrafted luxury vehicles by Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Works are some of the finest works of art in the space travel world. And being accessible only to Naboo royalty and a select few VIPs chosen by the Queen of Naboo, they are some of the rarest ships as well. But there are a lot more of them than you might expect, and they are a lot more interesting than you might think as well. So today we are going to take a look at each and every one of them, including some you may have never even heard of before. I am Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and these are the Royal Starships of Naboo. N-1 Starfighter. Perhaps the most well-known Naboo starship was the distinctive N-1 Starfighter. Its beautiful golden chrome livery stood out among other more drab starfighters, and its high-quality construction was the envy of most other manufacturers. It measured 11 meters long by 5.9 wide and 1.25 tall. It was armed with twin blaster cannons and 2 proton torpedo launchers, which oddly shared the same launch tube. It was capable of reaching 1,100 kilometers per hour, or 684 miles per hour, thanks to its twin radial J-type pulse engines, though some were outfitted with the equally powerful Nubian 221 sublight engines. It also had a Class 1 Monarch C4 hyperdrive. The N-1 entered production in the High Republic era in canon, though we don't know anything about its early history other than that it was there. In Legends it was brand new as of the invasion of Naboo, having been the previous monarch King Ars Varuna's pet project. Regardless, in either version of the story, the first event we see it in is the Battle of Naboo, where Bravo Squadron engaged the Trade Federation control ship Vatoon Pala. One N-1, piloted by the mischievous child Anakin Skywalker, flew into the Federation ship and accidentally destroyed it from the inside. N-1s continued to be used by the Naboo Royal Space Fighter Corps for decades afterward, defending Naboo space and escorting their diplomatic ships. They were largely unused by the end of the Imperial era, though, as the Empire strongly discouraged planets from having their own local militaries, and Emperor Palpatine had significant influence over his home planet. Despite this, Princess Leia, rebel pilot Shara Bey, and then Queen of Naboo Sasha Saruna managed to find 3 abandoned N-1s in working condition in the Theed Palace hangar when they needed starfighters to destroy the Operation Cinder satellites threatening to destroy Naboo's climate after the Emperor's death. Later on, several N-1s would find their way into the hands of various individuals across the galaxy. Mandalorian Din Djarin bought a hot-rodded N-1 around 10 ABY, and another was used in 35 ABY by First Order contractor Lee Mackay. Finally, several N-1s were present for the Battle of Exegol, though it is unknown if these were in the hands of independent owners or collectors like Din and Kai, or if Naboo resumed the use of them after the end of the Empire. Let me know if you'd like a full video on the N-1 sometime. There's a lot more to say about it, but this segment is already too long as it is. We have many more ships to discuss. NX Police Cruiser. The next ship on the list is the NX Police Cruiser. This was an aircraft used by the Royal Naboo Security Forces for judicial duties and training pilots to use the N-1. It was mostly identical to the N-1, but had a third engine instead of an astromech socket, was only capable of atmospheric and suborbital flight, and was slightly smaller, at 9 meters long by about 5 meters wide and 1 tall. The RNSF had acquired a squadron of NXs a year before the Trade Federation invasion of Naboo, and used a mixed squadron of these and N1s to liberate a Trade Federation internment camp while Queen Amidala was off the planet. Sadly, due to its lack of spaceflight capabilities, it was not able to participate in the climactic Battle of Naboo, but its contributions in disrupting Trade Federation operations on the ground and training the pilots of Bravo Squadron who engaged the Federation fleet meant that it had a significant impact on the battle nonetheless. Afterward, the RNSF continued to use the NX to combat pirate and separatist forces on and around Naboo. Miscellaneous Starfighters. There were several additional Naboo starfighters that come from a Star Wars strategy game and aren't really worthy of their own sections. The first of these, the NB-1 Royal Bomber, was a bomber used by Naboo, and that's really all we know about it. I personally don't feel that an exclusively offensive craft like a bomber makes sense for the more or less peaceful Naboo, but I suppose in Legends where this comes from they had a fairly significant war against the Gungans not too long ago, so perhaps the design is left over from that. It was eventually replaced by the NB-1S, which had a slightly better weapons system. That ship would also be replaced by the NB-1T, which added a second seat for a bombardier. There was also a predecessor to the N1, known as the N1L Light Starfighter, which was smaller, slower, and weaker than the more famous fighter, and also an advanced version of the N1 called the N1T, which had more powerful laser cannons than the N1 and was based on some concept art for the N1 that featured a less elegant version of the same basic design. Naboo Royal Lifter. Regrettably, virtually nothing is known about the Naboo Royal Lifter. It was a teardrop-shaped transport with a similar color scheme to the N1 used by the Royal Naboo Security Forces. It had a crew of 1 pilot and could carry 5 to 11 passengers and some cargo. Sometime between 39 and 36 BBY, Qui-Gon Jinn entered the battle for Alaris Prime via a Royal Lifter, and in 3 ABY, a Naboo rebel group called the Amidalans took a Royal Lifter to Polis Massa to fight Darth Vader and avenge the late Queen Amidala. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. J-type Star Skiff. Moving on to the more famous Naboo yachts, we have the Naboo Star Skiff. This passenger transport measured 29.2 meters long by 49.3 meters wide. Its Sossin 7 sublight engines could propel it up to 1,050 kilometers per hour, and it had a blisteringly fast Class 0.5 hyperdrive. It was armored with 2 laser cannons, a first for Naboo Royal starships, and a sign of radically changing times in the galaxy. It had a crew of 1 pilot, 1 navigator, and 1 gunner, though a single pilot or droid could fly it with ease. It could carry 3 passengers as well. The J-type was designed for Queen Opilana around 22 BBY at the start of the Clone Wars. Officially, only Naboo's current monarch was allowed to use fully chromium-plated starships, but Opilana was very lenient on this rule and gave a star skiff to Senator Amidala, who remained incredibly popular and beloved by the people of Naboo even after her reign as queen had ended. Several other Republic figures were given star skiffs too, though it is unclear if they were chromium-coated like the Queen and Senators were, or just regular bare metal to emulate the iconic Naboo look. Padme used her skiff to travel to several of the missions she completed for the Republic during the Clone Wars, but sadly it was most famous for her final flight to Mustafar to confront her husband Anakin. Obi-Wan Kenobi used the ship to take her to Polis Massa for medical care afterward, and after her death there, it was returned to the people of Naboo, who decommissioned it in her honor. H-type Nubian Yacht. Well, that was grim. Let's move on to the next Naboo ship, the H-type Nubian Yacht. This retro-looking spacecraft was one of the more common Naboo ships, being available to a much wider range of Naboo personnel than the other royal starships. In fact, it was the only one that could be officially purchased outright, with a cost of 800,000 credits. It measured 47.9 meters long by 8.1 meters wide and 7.1 meters tall. It had a top speed of 2,000 kilometers per hour, making it one of the fastest ships in atmosphere in the galaxy, thanks to its Sosin 3 ion drives. It also had a Class 0.9 Nubian S5 hyperdrive. The H-type's crew consisted of a pilot, co-pilot, 2 astromech droids, and an optional navigator and communications officer, though it could be operated with as little as 1 pilot and 1 droid if necessary. It carried 8 passengers, 75 tons of cargo, and 2 months of consumables. Padme Amidala had at least 2 H-type yachts throughout her tenure as senator. The first one she took from Naboo to Tatooine to help Anakin find his mother, and then to Geonosis to rescue Obi-Wan Kenobi. Its fate after her and Anakin's capture is unknown. She may have recovered it later and continued to use it, or it may have been destroyed in the Battle of Geonosis. Either way, it wouldn't have lasted long, because the next time we see her use one, she was tricked into traveling to the Kaleida Nebula during a battle, and was captured by General Grievous as a hostage. After her rescue, her H-type, whether it was the same one from before or a new one, was destroyed aboard the Separatist flagship Malevolence. Her next H-type was destroyed on a diplomatic mission to Rhodia, after Jar Jar Binks crushed it with a magnetic hoist in the hangar. Padme was not the only individual known to pilot an H-type, though. Her handmaiden Sabe used one in the Imperial era during a quest to test Luke Skywalker's character. It crash-landed after she pretended to kidnap someone in front of him, and he used the Force to shut down the ship's power. More famously, though, the Jedi Master Kelleran Beck used an H-type to flee Coruscant during Order 66 with the youngling Grogu. The exact sequence of events for the escape is unclear, as it has only been told from Grogu's perspective, but it would appear that Beck had a good relationship with the Royal Naboo security forces and asked them to bring him a ship he could take younglings and Padawans to when the Jedi Purge began. Unfortunately, Grogu was the only one he could save as far as we currently know. We also don't know what happened to him or the ship after the escape. J-type diplomatic barge. We are going in reverse order with the yachts, which brings us to the J-type diplomatic barge, also known as the Naboo Royal cruiser. This was the largest Naboo ship at 39 meters long by 91 meters wide and 6.8 meters tall. It, like the H-type, could fly at 2,000 kilometers per hour or 1,243 miles per hour in atmosphere, and had a Class 0.7 S6 paired hyperdrive generator. Its crew consisted of a pilot, co-pilot, and optional navigator, communications officer, and shield operator. It could carry 4 to 10 passengers, a moderate amount of cargo, and 1 year of consumables. The Royal cruiser was unarmed, but it was almost always flown with an escort of 4 N1 Starfighters, and had 4 recharge sockets on the leading edge of its wings to dramatically increase the Starfighter's range. The Royal cruiser was designed shortly before the Clone Wars to improve upon the earlier J-type 327 starship. It was reserved almost exclusively for the Queen of Naboo, which at that point was Queen Jamilia, though the Queen allowed Padme, the main character of Naboo, to have one as well. Padme's Royal cruiser was badly damaged by a bomb planted by assassin Zam Wessel upon landing at Coruscant on a trip to vote on the Military Creation Act, but it would be repaired and used for several other missions throughout the Clone Wars. J-type 327. Finally, we loop back around to the Phantom Menace from which we started. The J-type 327 Nubian starship, or the Naboo Royal starship, was a sophisticated and elegant handmade yacht used by, as you can imagine, the Royal House of Naboo. It measured 76 meters long by 29.1 meters wide and 5.8 meters tall. Its Hedon 5 sublight engines could propel it to 920 km per hour in atmosphere, and it had a relatively sluggish Class 1.8 T-14 hyperdrive generator, compared to the Class 0.9s and 0.5s that the other Naboo yachts had. It had a large crew consisting of a pilot, a co-pilot, a communications officer, an engineer, a navigator, a diplomatic aide, a security officer, and a bosun, as well as several astromech droids. It could carry 10 passengers, 4 tons of cargo, and 3 months of consumables. It was unarmed like most Naboo ships, but had excellent sensors and shields. For once, this Naboo ship was genuinely limited to the current monarch of Naboo. Granted, the only time we see it in action was when that was Padme anyway, but at least they didn't give her one of these as well afterward. It was introduced in 38 BBY for King Ars Varuna, who requested a ship that combined the elegant and artful designs of the Naboo, built around the masterfully engineered components of the Nubians. Varuna would only get to use the ship 3 times before his assassination, but his successors loved it. It was of course the J-type 327 that whisked Queen Amidala away to safety after the Trade Federation invasion of Naboo. It was damaged by fire from the blockade on its way out, and had to make a pit stop at Tatooine for repairs before making its way to Coruscant for her to plead with the Senate for aid. She then returned to Naboo aboard the 327 to petition the Gungans for aid instead. In Legends, her J-type was decommissioned after her term as queen had ended, and a new one was built for Queen Jamilia, though this was not the case in canon. In canon, Palpatine came to own Amidala's J-type in the Imperial era, and gifted it to Darth Vader to taunt him about Padme. Vader took it to Mustafar to oversee the construction of his castle, and landed without shields to allow the planet's heat to destroy the ship's chrome coating, though that would be later repaired. King Arturo of Oraco also owned a J-type 327, this one gold-plated, which he used on a mission to rescue his daughter Mi from a band of criminals. Before we end this segment, I just have to say, why are they all J-types? J-type 327, J-type diplomatic barge, J-type Star Skiff, J-type engines in the N1 and in the barge, which can't be the same J-type engines because they are way different sizes. Just call them something else. I know you guys have more letters, you called one the H-type. Actually, that almost makes it stranger. Why are all of them but that one a J-type? If all of them were, then fair enough, I guess that's just what they call ships on Naboo. But if one is called something else, then why is only one called something else? Make the barge a K-type and the skiff an I-type or something, I don't know. I don't really have a conclusion here, it's just really strange. Beautiful ships though, I'll give them that. And that's every Naboo ship in Star Wars. I did skip their ground vehicles and Gungan craft, but those are lists for another time. Let me know which Naboo ship is your favorite in the comments. For me, it's a really tough choice between the N1, the H-type, the 327, and the Royal Cruiser. I think the H-type seems the most practical given its more modest size, so I guess I'll go with that. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts too, so let me know. I'd also love to know if you were aware of all of these, or if any of them were new to you like the N1L and N1T were to me. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend as well. Do all that, and there might be a nice shiny Nubian yacht in it for you. Probably not though. Anyway, I will see you next week. RFC, out.